picking an All Blacks team of players who are uncapped. The reasoning behind this is World Cup is approaching, and you got to look at these guys who are potential bolters for the All Black squad. We've already had some guys injured. Damien McKenzie is not going to make the World Cup. Ben Smith has been injured in the lead up to the World Cup. So you look at the last World Cup, guys like Nihi Milner-Skudder ended up playing a big role, coming from kind of out of nowhere. So let's pick a uncapped 15 and see just how likely any of these guys would be to actually go through to the World Cup in Japan for 2019. It might take a few injuries for them to get there, but see how the depth is. And yeah, so we'll start with the props. Loose head prop, I've gone with Aidan Ross. He's 23 years old, plays for the Chiefs. Realistically, I think in terms of the pecking order, he's still quite far down the way. I think Atu Moli would probably be ahead of him in terms of guys who haven't really had a lot of game time with the All Blacks, but Atu has played with the All Blacks in that game against that French 15, like in 2017, so I've not included him for that reason. But Aidan Ross is there as well. I think his chances of getting a call up would be pretty unlikely, but hey man, we seem to be getting injuries to props left, right and centre, so if Stephen Donald can kind of kick a penalty to win a World Cup, I wouldn't rule anything out. Hooker, I've gone with Riccitelli from the Hurricanes. He's 24 years old. With injuries to some of the guys in the Hurricanes, he has ended up being the main guy for the Hurricanes at times, especially with Dane Coles. So realistically, I still think he's behind Asafa Amua, but like Atumoli, he's been in that black jersey before. I don't think for any test matches, but he has played in black, maybe in the one in Japan. I can't remember. I did look it up, but basically, if I'm going with uncapped guys, truly uncapped, I can't go with Asafa Amua. So I've gone with Riccitelli. I know a lot of guys don't like him, but I think he's kind of a workhorse player. He's busy and he's been successful with the Hurricanes. So whether he can make that step up to international level would definitely remain to be seen. But 24, he's played New Zealand under 20s, so for a 24-year-old front rower with a fair bit of experience, there's still definitely a bit of room to grow there. Tight head, I've gone with Michael Alaalatoa from the Crusaders. He is New Zealand eligible now. I believe he's eligible for Samoa, for Australia, and for New Zealand. Still got to make a decision about his future. He is 27, so if he is going to play international rugby, it might be time to have a look at what he wants to do. I believe he played Samoa under 20s, so he's got that connection. Obviously grew up in Australia, so got that connection, and he's been playing for the Crusaders for a few years now, so he's got that connection as well. In and out of the team, starting or bench with Franks there as well, so he's definitely had a good guy to learn from. He's a good guy to have, and in terms of the pecking order, if they pick him, I think he's not that far behind some of the other guys, but Ta'avao has been called up as well, kind of when we had propping crises before, so I guess we would have to wait and see. Into the locks, and locks was hard because we got a lot of guys who are good loose forwards who can play lock, but do you go for a loose forward who plays lock at a World Cup or for the All Blacks, or do you go for a specialist lock? So I've kind of gone for a specialist lock. So I have gone with Josh Dickson from the Highlanders. So he's 24. He's played New Zealand under 20s as well. And alongside him, I've picked Tom Franklin. So he's 28, a fair bit more experience. Played for the Māori All Blacks. Also played New Zealand under 20s. He's like 1.99 m, which is like 6'6". I think Dickson's a little bit taller than him. So a decent locking duo who've got a fair bit of experience between them. It is hard with the All Blacks because you've got Riccitelli, Whitelock, and Scott Barrett, who are just like top class. And then you've got guys like Romano who've been around there as well. So who do you call in as that next level lock? There's not been a lot of room for guys to kind of get game time in there. I think Hemopo could be considered, but he's, I believe, going overseas. So for guys going overseas, I've kind of not really considered them because I think I mean, I know Kerbalo got some game time in black after he announced he was going to France, but for the most part, I think the All Blacks tend to stick with guys who have at least put their intentions more towards staying in New Zealand. The back row, that's pretty tough. So on the blind side, I've gone with Tom Robinson from the Blues. The guy's finally having a bit of injury-free time, and he is looking pretty good. I am a Blues fan, so I had to pick a Blues guy somewhere. It's interesting because there's a fair bit of debate about what the deal is with that number 6 jersey, because we don't really have an out-and-out choice for who's going to play 6. But I think we've got heaps of depth at 6. There's loads of guys. I'm not going to rattle them all off here. But whoever they go with, I think is going to do a stand-up job. So I don't think there's a whole lot of chance for Tom Robinson making his way to World Cup. I think there's a fair few guys who have been capped even a handful of times who are ahead of him. But he is still having a very good season for the Blues. In a Blues team that aren't doing all that good. They're doing okay at parts, but they're still struggling overall in the New Zealand Conference. Open side, I've gone with Lachlan Boshier. He's been pretty immense for the Crusaders this year. I haven't heard that much talk about him as a potential All Blacks bolter. There's been a little bit. It's been a little bit about Robinson as well. They tend to talk some of these guys up. He's 24. As I said, plays for the Chiefs, played in New Zealand under-20s. Again, Chiefs team that's not been playing all that well, but at times in some games he has been kind of one of their shining light players in a team that, to be fair, has been ravaged by injury. So still think he could definitely do a job if called up, and still young enough that could really go forward and be well developed by the All Blacks. Number 8, I've gone with Reed Prinsep. I was initially thinking Akira Ioane, but again, that game against the French 15, wasn't an official test, but he was called up for that game. So I've gone with Reed Prinsep. That's not to say Reed Prinsep isn't a good player, because I already had him on kind of like a short list for 6 or 8, and pretty happy to put him in as well. 26 years old, so not quite that 24-year-old, so he's still young enough to go forward, and still old enough that he's probably, in terms of his body and strength, he's really at peak condition. So he's a good player, he's a big boy. He's played for the Māori All Blacks as well. So, man, the back row of that, Boshier, Robinson, and Prinsep, I still think looks pretty mean. So I don't have any problems with that forward pack at all. Into the backs, halfback, I've gone with Bryn Hall. And he's looked pretty good since he's gone to the Crusaders. And in New Zealand at the moment, we do have a fair bit of choice at halfback. Obviously, Aaron Smith is the first choice guy. TJ Perenara is putting a lot of pressure on him. Brad Weber is kind of the forgotten guy who for most countries, I think, would probably be getting a national team spot, but seems to be a bit on the outer. Te Toiroa Tuhuriarangi, he's there as well. So got plenty of good halfbacks, and then there's Mitch Drummond as well from the Crusaders. He's had, I think, a little bit of time in black, and then Bryn Hall's kind of been the unfortunate guy to miss out. He's 27, Super Rugby champion before, Māori All Blacks, New Zealand under-20s. Definitely a guy to do a job. I don't think many of us would have many qualms with him kind of donning the black jersey and running the team. Now, number 10 is an interesting one. Who do you pick for number 10 for the All Blacks, fly half or first 5? I've gone with Josh Ioane because based on form, he seems to be your guy. He's 23. There's kind of been a thing between him, Marty Banks, Bryn Gatland at the Highlanders as to who's going to take the reins there. So once Sopoaga left, there was a bit of a vacuum. He's been doing a pretty solid effort with Marty Banks injured and Bryn Gatland out for the season. I should say that in terms of these picks, I've been trying to pick guys who are at least fit or have been fit for parts of the Super Rugby season, because there are other guys who just haven't played, which is kind of unfortunate. But Josh Ioane has been playing not all the games at 10, but a fair few, and he really seems to be coming into his own. So decent guy to have along. Midfield is pretty tough because most of the teams, if you think about like their starting 12, for the most part, has played for the All Blacks. Like Nonu's played for the All Blacks, Crotty's played for the All Blacks, ALB's played for the All Blacks. Lamape's played for the All Blacks. So I have gone with Tei Walden from the Highlanders for 12, so second 5. 25 years old, Māori All Blacks again, New Zealand under 20s. And defensively, really, really good work rate, pretty solid player. And I'm putting Braydon Ennor outside him from the Crusaders. He's still very young, 21 years old, again, New Zealand under 20s. Ennor is definitely a attacking machine, so I like the idea of him paired with Tei Walden because he's a defensive, pretty good defensive midfielder. So I think those guys can do a job. And then you go to the outside backs, and there is a fair bit to choose from there as well. Left wing, I've gone with Ben Lam. There was a lot of talk about him making the All Blacks last year when he was on a real try-scoring run. It never ended up happening. He kind of lost a bit of his form. Started this season slowly, but has shown in some moments that he has still definitely got it. 27 years old, played sevens before, so yeah, man, the guy can score tries from nowhere. Pretty big guy as well. Right wing, I've gone with Sevu Reece. Now, I think the main thing that would count against him is his trouble with the law, which, if he can leave behind him again, could mean he's got a big career in the game, but he definitely needs to mind his P's and Q's. If they can put that to one side and just pick him on form, he is definitely a form player. Playing for the Crusaders, 22 years old. The guy's doing some amazing stuff. He's not all that big, but he's pretty strong. So I like the idea of him and Lamb together because different skill sets, different body shapes, different ages as well. So yeah, I think he's eligible for New Zealand as well because he's been here a few years, even though he is originally from Fiji. And lastly, fullback, I've gone with Solomon Alaimalo. 23 years old, plays for the Chiefs. I had a look at him and some other guys who've been playing fullback, some young guys. And despite the fact that he's been playing in a Chiefs team that's not doing that well, he's still putting up pretty good numbers. And 2018 had an exceptional season as well. So he's got a little bit more experience than some other guys. Definitely a guy who could add value to that black jersey. So yeah, those are the guys I picked. As I said, there's a whole swathe of guys that I could have picked that I didn't. A couple examples would be like I think Malani Nanai for the Blues is probably having his best season in a Blues jersey, but he is off to France at the end of the year, so I didn't really consider him. Matt Faddis is off to Ulster, so again, guys leaving I think is less likely to get picked. And again, I mentioned Akira Ioane, Atumoli, Asafa Amua, guys like that who have all donned black before, even if it's only kind of once or twice and maybe not necessarily in a full test. I haven't gone with guys in that kind of situation. But yeah, that's the team. Plenty of other guys who've been injured throughout the season who I haven't necessarily considered. As I said, yeah, guys going overseas, all that jazz. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts. Any of these guys you think are a realistic prospect of making the World Cup? Or how many injuries are they away from being that number one guy? You guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.